Hi everybody, this is Osprey from MyChartCoach.com, and in this video we're going to take a look at the cannabis sector. I'm just going to go over this quickly in this video. I went over it a little bit longer in the last video. Yeah, as you can see here, it did close up 2% today for ticker symbol MJ. This is the Alternative Harvest ETF. It had the gap down open. It did fill the gap from back here in August. I talked about that in the last video, the gap between those two candles. You can see the candle today filled that gap. You want to see it stay above the bottom of the gap level. Yeah, I don't know why I have that. Oh, I guess that's for yeah, and now there is a gap, a upward gap between low of day on Tuesday and high of day today, and so it's going to need to break above the bottom of the gap here. This is this red line, and fill the gap in order to head higher. In order for the cannabis sector to get moving, it's going to have to turn this EMA4 at 28.30 into support. If it fails to break that level, you know, it'll signal more downside risk. You could possibly see it come down here and test that 25 support level. If it got above EMA4 and then up above EMA 13 up here, the orange line at 29.35, that would be really bullish, signaling upside potential. Okay, let's look at APHA here. Notice RSI now is above 30, so it's heating up here. It's above 20 on Fasto, so there was a big bounce today. Bullish engulfing reversal pattern formed. You had a nice close above the bottom of the gap here, and then it came up and it filled the gap. Notice how the high of day was right here at the top of the gap level, this red line. It's going to need to break above the top of the gap in order to come up and test EMA4 at 591. What you don't want to see is it drop back below the bottom of the gap level. It needs to stay above that level, you know, stay above that 525 level. Now, if it got up here and it broke above the bottom, or EMA4 at 591, what you're looking for is a run up to the next gap, an EMA8 at 680, and then there's a gap between these two candles, and the bottom of the gap will be the next tough level to break. Notice the big volume behind the move today. If you look at APHA on the 15-minute chart here, you could see how it ran all the way up here to the top of the gap, and yeah, that's right where it stalled out. That was the high of day at 560, and so in order to head higher, it's going to have to break above this top of the gap at 560, and then above the 100-day or 100 simple moving average at 571. If it could break above that level, that'll signal more upside potential. If it fails to break that level, it would signal a possible temporary top, and it could come back down here. The bottom of the gap is at 520. If it broke below 520 here, then 520 and EMA4, the pink line at 525, that's going to signal downside risk, and it could come down here to the 50 simple moving average at 462 to test support. Okay, let's look at canopy growth here. CGC was down 3.53% today. There were hollow red candles across the sector today. A hollow red candle forms when the stock was up on the day, but was closed above the open, but was down on the day. So the open was way down here, and it closed up here, but it was still down on the day. The previous close was up here at the bottom of this red candle. There is a gap between low of day on Tuesday and high of day today. A break above this 31 level, that would set up a gap fill, and then in order to head higher, I mean, you have the moving averages all stacked up here. It's going to have to get above EMA 13 at 33.32, the orange line, in order to push higher. If all these moving averages remain resistance, it could push lower. Okay, let's look at Cronus group here. Yeah, so this formed the hollow red candle as well. It had the black candle yesterday, and we were or on Tuesday, and we were thinking the candles might work back into the bands. That's exactly what happened here. They came back into the bands and bounced off of support. It did close back above EMA4 at 1014. As long as that level's holding, the chart is super strong. You want to see a break above 1075, and then up here at 1150, you've got this descending resistance line. Okay, that's the big resistance level. Trading it above 150 would be really bullish. If it broke below 1014, that would be a red flag, and it could come down here to the 50 simple moving average at 921. Okay, let's look at TLRY. Yeah, closed up 1% today, or it was down 1% today. Very light volume. There is a small, it looks like a small micro gap between low of day on Tuesday and high of day today. And so what really has to happen is it has to also get above the moving averages. You can see it hit the orange line and pulled back. Once it gets above 106 EMA 13 there and turns it into support, it could get moving. As long as the EMA 4 at 101.61 remains resistance, it signals downside risk. The big level to hold is going to be over here at about 90. This is the high and the low for these two candles on the 29th and 30th, or it was the closes on the 29th and 30th. And so breaking below 90 would be a major red flag if it closed below that level. Okay, let's look at Aurora Cannabis here. It also bounced today. The gap did fill from over here in August, and so there was a gap fill, and many times that sets up a bounce, and so it did bounce, and it came back up, and it filled the gap between low of day on Tuesday and high of day today, and so that gap is filled. There's no unfilled gap in this chart between the last two candles, and so what it needs to do is get back above EMA 4 at 547. So trading above 550 would be bullish. And then you need to see a break above that EMA 13 at 587. If these levels, remain resistance, what you're looking for is it has to stay above this gap. If it were to drop below $5, that would be a red flag signaling downside risk, and it could work its way back down here to this $4 support zone. Okay, let's look at NBEV here. Yeah, the NBEV is, it's been consolidating in this zone. It just noticed across the board, it was just light volume in the cannabis sector, so it wasn't like a big volume bounce, which that's what you want to see. If you look back here in September, you could see it started with the bigger volume spike than here, and then the volume increased. So what you want to see now is you want to see volume building. You want to see a volume spike and push through resistance, and that would signal upside potential similar to back here. It's similar to right here. When you had the volume, it pushed higher. Right now, it's really light volume, so that makes bounces more suspect. They're easier to sell off. For this to get moving, it needs to get above the 50-day simple moving average at 509. That's lined up with this high close resistance level, and so if it's trading above 509, the green line there, it's hard to see, I put a red line right there, it would signal upside potential. If it fails to break that level, it could signal more consolidation. It's trying to break above this descending resistance where it already did last week, and then it's trying to push higher, but that 50-day simple moving average is in the way. If it could break above, that would signal it could head higher. It has to stay above the middle Bollinger Band at 411. That's the key support level. If it broke below that, that would signal more consolidation, not ready to go. And then finally, let's look at IGCC. Yeah, this stock is kind of in the gutter right now. It trades over the counter. It had a lot of bad, it became a major dog. Everybody loved it when it was talking about cannabis beverages, and the news came out that maybe they're full of baloney, and so they drove it all the way down, and then now it's trying to bounce. Notice there was a doji that formed today. Many times after a pullback, a doji would signal a possible technical bounce. Looks like there's a micro gap between the last two candles. Just keep an eye on this stock. If it gets above 82, the middle Bollinger Band, it could get moving. It hasn't closed above the middle Bollinger Band since back here on the 15th of October, and that was the day before this big downtrend started. So a close above that level would be a bullish change in trend. Notice volume is super light, so look for a potential volume spike and break above resistance, signal upside potential. Right now it's below EMAs 4, 8, and 13. If that 72 level remains resistance, it could come down here and test that 50 support zone. All right, thanks for viewing this video. If you'd like to learn more about charts and technical analysis, please come check out the chat. Thank you.